My name is Jacob Crowe, and welcome to the Crow's Perch. From atop my perch, we delve into the latest of RPG horror stories, and boy do I have a story for you. In today's story, a DM shuts down every single character idea suggested by a new player. And without further ado, let's gather up a murder and get right into this story. This will be my second time playing a campaign, so I know some of the basics, but not a lot. I like making characters with a quirk, something I can use as a starting point to develop them over time. For example, the first campaign I was in, with a different DM, I played a high elf cleric that had a strange interpretation of her own religion, which got her excommunicated from the church. The new DM is another player from the first game that knows a lot more about D&D. It's something he's passionate about, and is very confident in his DMing abilities. So when asked if a few of us wanted to play a Wildmount campaign, I said sure. Why not? I'm not familiar with the setting, and he prefers we go in blind, so I respect his wishes, and I give him a few rough ideas of characters. But every character I suggest to him is shot down, either for being too quirky, too silly, too comedy-focused, not serious enough, wouldn't fit the campaign, etc. I think I've suggested about 10 characters so far, but he doesn't like any of them. A few examples. A half-elf warlock child that's extremely optimistic about everything, with the god of music or dance as a patron, shot down for being too silly and comedic. He also didn't like the way the character talked. I offered to change it, but he rejected it. A ranger, but not very good with a bow, but is good with most throwing weapons. Too restrictive. A copy and paste of my already existing character. Too comedic. A clumsy dwarf mechanic whose secret dream is fluffier animals. Shut down for not being serious enough. Then someone in the chat asks what races we can use, and he lists a bunch, one of them being drow, and I think, cool, that sounds fun. I'll make a drow character. I start with my most outrageous suggestion to see if we can tweak it into something usable. It's a drow bard that spends most of its time hiding its appearance using a disguise kit. I'm told the world would make it too hard to play, and I would die the second I failed a deception roll because everyone would think I'm a spy. Rejected. So I tweak the character and come back. I suggest losing the always-on disguise and just playing it like a bard that enjoys over-the-top fashion. Again, I'm told it wouldn't work because the appearance and personality of a drow would bring suspicion, and once again I would die if I failed a deception roll. Rejected. Okay then, no bard. That clearly won't work. So I suggest a drow rogue that really is secretly a spy, because everyone would think my character was one anyway. I'm told drow can't be spies because of their dark skin and looks. Rejected. So I suggest an albino drow or Zarkai, but apparently they don't exist in Wildmount, and therefore I can't be one. I understand I'm suggesting weird characters, but every step of the way I say I'm fine with changes, but each idea I put forth is rejected. He says he wants serious characters, but one guy is mostly playing an altered Devil May Cry character, and the other player is working on a tiefling that steals luck. The DM is even helping them with the logistics of the situation, so I don't know how my characters seem all that crazy in comparison. I want to make a character that he'll accept, but I don't want to come in with some cookie-cutter hero I've put no thought or effort into. He's constantly complaining that the DM in the other game doesn't play correctly. Railroading, fake rolls, rooms in dungeons that do nothing, overpowered bosses, plot armor for certain characters but not others, etc. But he didn't have such strong restrictions on what we could and couldn't play. This player goes on to asking r/D&D Next for advice on a character they could create that the DM might accept. But as we'll discover, this will turn out to be the least of this player's problems when it comes to this DM. Part 2. This is somewhat of an update to my post 5 months ago. A long story short, after rejecting every character idea I came up with, the DM finally said yes to one. He was a species and class I had never played before, a Scourge Aasimar Bloodhunter, but I was excited to try him out. I came up with a backstory the DM could play with, making him born into a nondescript cult before escaping at a young age and ending up in the care of an old bloodhunter that taught him the rope, but nothing about civilization or the world outside of the wilderness. Then one day he disappeared, and my character went searching for him. The plan at first was to have one of the other characters find mine in the forest while traveling to a town, and they would team up before meeting the other two players. That was thrown out the second the game started. The DM had the other characters in a tavern talking together before saying my character walked in. I was confused, but tried to play it off. I said something like, even though my character didn't know what a tavern was, his master had talked about a place like this, so I look around for a moment before heading to the bar to see if the man behind the bar knows anything. One of the other players had just finished talking to the barman, so I thought that was a good choice. But the DM then said there was no one behind the bar. Okay, I look around for him, but he's not there. So I describe my character as looking confused and lost while standing at the bar area to see if that will get anything to happen. The other player characters continue their interaction. One has his head on the table, the other is explaining why he's there, and then the bartender comes out, gives the other players food and drink before talking to me. He has a strong accent that takes a minute for my character to understand, but he orders somewhat and is told to sit down, so he sits on the floor. Another few minutes of interaction happens before one of the players, a warlock, points me out and says, "Hey, we should see what that guy's deal is." So the other player approaches, calls my character a thing, a child, autistic, and a few other choice words. I say both in and out of character that I'm not comfortable with that, but they keep at it, before deciding I need to be babysat, which meant I wasn't allowed to do anything without being yelled at. There was a scene when we needed to talk to this old woman, but she wouldn't open her door. The character that was babysitting me was yelling at her, so I tried to walk around the back to see if I could look inside for clues, but they noticed me and followed before screaming at me for moving. Meanwhile, the warlock decides to talk to the woman, who again says we're not allowed in. He says okay, we'll just leave. We end up in the house of a dead guy. I finally find a clue when led out of the sight of the babysitter. It's the footsteps of the old woman from earlier, but I get yelled at for moving again before I can talk to the warlock, so I run back to the first house because it seems like the best option after trying to explain. When I get there, it starts a fight. The warlock joins in, but the babysitter chooses not to because it's my fault for starting the fight. Halfway through, the old woman agrees to talk after some convincing from the warlock, but she asks for a heal. No one else has one. So I use a skill on my character sheet that lets me heal 1 point of hit points based on my level, which is 1, but it's something, I thought. The session ends not long after that because it was getting late. I talked to the warlock and he had fun. The babysitter said my character is too annoying and needs to be babysat, or we won't get anything done. The DM agrees and says he's too predictable, too much to handle, and I'm playing a blood hunter wrong because I used the heal he put on my sheet. I'll just copy the messages here. DM.
You're playing into your stats a bit too much. Your charisma's only a -1. It's not so bad that you're totally socially inept. Oh, also, you do know that blood hunters are not healers, right?
Me. The character is meant to be socially inept. The only contact he's had since early childhood is his master. He's basically feral. His character arc is meant to be him integrating into society and learning about the world while looking for the guy. He had 1 heal. You asked for a heal. DM.
The heal is literally 1 HP. The problem with a character like that is that it's literally made to be babysat, or you'll go and get yourself killed. In prison, or in an asylum for being considered a crazy person. I'm not, other DM's name, I don't pull punches. It's a character good for a one-on-one game, or a campaign for characters all like that. But a feral character, being around smart people, nothing but disaster, and not the good kind. I have a proposition. We rework the character, or we do a whole new one, because I feel this one, it's just not gonna work. And this time, we'll work on one together, like I've done with the others. But it'll be after the next session.
I think maybe I'm not cut out for D&D. I have fun playing, but if I'm going to ruin everyone else's time, then I shouldn't play. I had worked on this character with him because every other character I suggested was rejected. So the idea of making another one is just upsetting. Am I the problem here? Because it feels like it. End of story. This should not be a new player's introduction to D&D, but I think most of you would already know that. This group had animosity towards this player right from the beginning. I imagine after all of the joke character submissions, the DM and his players immediately thought that the OP was trying to derail their campaign. So without even allowing the OP a chance to show them otherwise, they start the session off by ignoring their character and inorganically shoving them into a party that immediately berated them. They didn't want a new player. They wanted a damage dealer, evident by their visceral reaction to the player using their character's ancestry's innate healing ability as an ASMR. This is a perfect example of the kind of group that role-plays, but doesn't role-play. Also, is it just me, or are they ableist as hell? To the original poster, Walker9702, you are not the problem. Find a different game. These people aren't worth your time. and I wish you luck in your adventures ahead. I think that's where we're going to end today's story, and if you'd like this story and you'd like to hear others like it, then I would recommend you consider subscribing to the channel. And leave this video a like as it's good for the algorithm. We're coming around the bend to almost 400 subscribers soon, and I'd really appreciate if I can get more burbs in the Perch, as well as some burbs in our Discord channel. You could submit stories, your art, like this piece by Simple Logic, showcasing the burb in his natural form, as well as any cool dumpster fire memes you can find. Link is in the description down below. Until next time, as the crow flies.